Hi, everybody. Welcome to Heart Radio with Dan and Ann. We're coming to you on the X Zone Broadcast Network, www.xzbn.net. And I want to tell you tonight, everybody, we have a really wonderful show for you. We have a special guest. And Angela, would you mind introducing our guest tonight?
Absolutely. So, our topic tonight, first of all, is going to be about awakening to and overcoming negative programming. And our guest again, it's Holly Nightingale. She's a mother of 2 children and 5 grandchildren. Being raised Christian in her formative years, Holly didn't question until about age 12, but then she discovered that certain things she was being taught in Sunday school just didn't make sense to her. And so began her spiritual journey to find truth outside of the box of mainstream Christianity. She has studied nearly all of the religions of the world, including the different forms of Christianity, Mormonism, and met or studied under many shamans, Buddhists, gurus with intimate knowledge of Saint Germain, and many others. Throughout her lifetime, she has been a massage therapist, taught guided meditation, and been a veteran caretaker of the dying for many years. Holly exudes kindness, love, and acceptance to all that she meets with non-judgement and is truly an example in this way to all that she meets. Welcome, Holly.
Welcome.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. I'm really honored to be here. And hopefully can help somebody have a different outlook or a different perspective.
That sounds good, Holly. Let's do it.
Yeah, what a journey, Holly, you've been on. I mean, I just have to ask you, what happened at 12? I mean, most people that I know, wake up much later in life. I know I was 40 years old before I had this awakening, but you had, at 12 years old, you started questioning. So, what do you think that was all about? What happened at 12?
Well, I think that to me, a lot of the messages that I've been giving from Christianity and Bible study just didn't make sense. They didn't make common sense to me, and the answers to where did people go when they die, that didn't make sense. And some of the ways that they talked about with Jesus, I felt like Jesus was trying to set an example of who we could be. Not so much that we would honor him as a God, but trying to show the way. And I don't know, it just didn't. A lot of things didn't make sense for me, so I kind of just dropped it for quite a long while.
Gotcha. How did you how did you end up going to so many different places? I mean, it mentions here shamanism, Buddhism, yeah, many forms of Christianity. Did you move around a lot, or how did you end up visiting all these places?
Yeah, that's a good question. I did move around a lot, and for one of the things that I was really a wonderful gift that my parents allowed me to be curious, and so I have a really strong sense of curiosity. So that was my investigative nature, and so as a young person, when I moved away from home, that seemed to make a really significant difference in my ability to see myself and who I was away from my family and away from my parents and what I had been told about myself. So that made a big difference. And all in all, I think I've moved more than 10 times in my life. But each time I have moved, it created an opportunity, I guess I want to say, to really look at, what is it I want to do with my life? Who am I? And so this questioning and investigation was really important.
Were your parents controlling at all? Is that why you left, or was it just?
Yes, they certainly they were, and it was real interesting. In a lot of ways, in hindsight, looking back, I think I was more of the adult and caretaker in the family than they were, and I was glad to get out of that situation. And young people do; they need to get away. They want to get away, and just a lot of the things that the way they handled their life, they fought a lot, and it was an older time of women staying home and men working, and that didn't sit very well with my mom. And Anyway, it was glad to get away. I was glad to get away. And I had several other siblings that always are interesting to have get along with. So
I know when I left home for the first time, I just graduated from high school, and my dad came down to be with me at that time, and he said, "Do you want to come, live with us for a while?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding?" Yes, absolutely. And I packed it up, and it was quite a different, experience living with my dad compared to my mother. He gave me a lot more freedom, and he really gave me a lot of free reign. Let me use his car, and boy, it really did. It changed everything. It was so nice to get away. And I remember my mother calling and saying, something like, Angela, are you going to church? I'm like, well, no. And I just got a real talking to about that. And I remember just hanging up on her. I was so mad because it was like I started tasting some freedom of doing, what I wanted to do. And then I was just being knocked down. But it was kind of like, it was a really strong reaction. I remember that. But I think we
oh, and
need
I
that.
think that I think that feeling of freedom is just it's just phenomenal, and we can have that over and over again in our life. I think just by deciding what you want to focus on, and I think that's one of the things that I wanted to say that pulled me out of negativity was that I had a job to do, and not just so much a day-to-day go-to-work job, but I had a goal. I had something I wanted to do. When I first got married, my husband wanted to go to college, and so we made an agreement. I'll work and you go to college, and then later on I'll have kids and you work. Anyway, so I had this focus, and each time that I have been in my life to negative places, moving and having a focus or a new idea or let's try something different really helped. So I would say that that's an important change too.
Well, I'm glad you journeyed into some of these places. A lot of people in, say just regular Christianity and different fundamentalist religions would never veer into some of these places. I mean, shaman, Buddhism, gurus, channeling, Saint Germain, and all these places. And so that's why I love to talk to you, Holly, because you did what a lot of us have wanted to do. You visited the dark places, if you will, in Christianity, and things would say those are just bad places, all those spiritual places. But I imagine you've gotten some treasures out of them, like the spiritualist church. Can you tell us anything about that, the spiritualist church, what it is? And
Um, yes, certainly the spiritualist church was a big help for me. And I was getting back to the curiosity. In my family, I had a great aunt who was a psychic card reader. And although she kind of scared me, it was accepted that our family had a lot of psychic abilities. So that wasn't necessarily a negative place to go. And so I guess I was still curious, and I did a lot of reading about different psychics and, like you say, a lot of different religions and things, and decided to try out the spiritualist church, which is non-denominational. It's not Christian, but their main message is that they believe that life continues after death. And I think a lot of people accept that now, but it used to be that there were many people that didn't know that we continued on. Anyway, so they prove that we continue on by doing mediumship and being in contact with spirits that are in a different dimension. And they would prove that by often representing somebody that was in their family or that knew things about them. And I was fascinated by that. And so that's where I learned to do meditation. I learned mediumship. I learned I was a healer. Like I said, as a child, I kind of felt like I was the adult taking care of the arguing parents, but I think that came out of the fact that I was a natural healer. And I didn't know it until I got the education from the spiritualist people that, okay, this was one of my gifts. And that brought a lot of wonderful things in my life through that.
Did your parents give you a hard time about going to that kind of a church or anything? They were pretty probably what mainstream Christian or something or what?
I think there was some hesitation about that. Yes, my dad was raised as a Mennonite, and so that kind of thing was not really within their scope. I guess that's definitely a Christian religion, and so yeah, they were skeptical, and I think they thought maybe it was just a fad I was going through. So they didn't really approve of it, but I guess they weren't going to. Well, I was an adult by then. They weren't going to squash it, so that was for sure. Maybe a little bit of rebellion is a good thing. It causes you to question and investigate. And the things on the dark side, we live in a dichotomy. We live where it's good and bad. If we couldn't see good and bad, we wouldn't have choices. And I think it's really important that we kind of look at different things and investigate and see, but certainly with caution, but knowing that
Absolutely.
you have spiritual people with you that are helping
guys,
you.
well, we're going to have to excuse me there, but we'll pick it up right after the commercial break here. But we have to take a commercial break. But Holly Nightingale will be back with us coming right up after the commercial break.
For more information about Heart to Heart Radio Show, visit Heart2Heart Radio Show or check out our website, prodigaljourneys.com. Again, we'll be right back after the commercial break.
All right, we're back. Tonight, our guest. If you'd like to contact Holly, you can email her at www.myprodigaljourney@gmail.com. And we just want to continue on where we left off, Holly. We're talking about awakening and overcoming negative programming. And I just wanted to ask you, I know you had a major experience with an angel. And I just wondered if you want to tell us about that, where you had a sort of an angelic moment or sensed an angel.
Yes, I did. I was in my 27 years old or late 20s. I got involved with a fellow that was not so good, and it ended up being a date rape. And I wasn't sure how to handle it. And what I did was I had heard, well, if somebody's trying to rape you, just flow with it and don't fight it, and then they'll get away. Well, that didn't happen. This fellow was, I guess, not into the sexual part so much as the power. And he said, well, I'm going to cut your throat. And I had the most amazing feeling rush up through me. It was a powerful feeling. It was so strong. And I jumped up. I had physical strength. I had mental clarity. I jumped up out of this bed and quickly grabbed a robe or some clothes and told this guy, you are getting out of my house now. And I physically pushed him out of my house. And I was afterwards was shaking so much, but I realized that I had this wonderful angel. I wasn't alone. I had help working through me. It was such a confirmation. I think it changed my whole life in that I no longer questioned whether there was a guardian angel or spirits or somebody to help me. I had that help. And that was just a harrowing experience, but that was the best part that I got out of it.
Yeah, and I also had an experience one time where I called upon God for this is what I asked for. I said, Lord, I need you to give me your power and your authority in this situation because it was a dangerous situation. And I want to tell you what, I don't want to get into that story because of who might be listening to it, but I can tell you one thing. It was powerful. And the person was very, very subdued. And I absolutely knew that I had God's authority and that he was all about it, protecting me and everything. And it was so cool. Anyway.
Yes, it made me never doubt that again. So
Mm-hmm.
that's been a really strong, wonderful thing in my life, that I never had to doubt that spirit was there or that I had angels helping me. And then when I went through the meditation, and I got messages, visions, different things like that helped me through my life. And I'm just so grateful that I know that, and I think we can all know that, that we all have angels.
Did you happen to have a name for the angel, or was it just you just knew it was an angelic presence, like you could pick up a car or something, you know? Did it have a name like your guardian angel, or was it just, or did it lead to any searching for more angels or anything like that?
Well, no, not at the time, but since then, I have many times. I've now become acquainted with the archangels and the ascended masters, and if I feel any sense of danger, I call on Archangel Michael to protect me and help me. And there's different ascended masters too that have helped me. If I need more compassion or more help in that realm, I can call on Kuan Yin, who is a compassionate ascended master. And so there's so many different, even elementals will help you.
And what are
had
elementals, Holly? What are elementals?
Elementals is people. Let me see. That's a kind of an unseen reality for most. It's fairies and gnomes and tree people, and I don't even know that I know all the ones that exist, but to me they're very real and have helped me many times in my life. And let me see, what can I say about that? I had a memory of being molested in my when I was younger, and it didn't come forward until much later, and I had a hard time dealing with that. And so what I did was I went to a shaman group to help me to deal with that, and they called upon the elementals to help me. And one of the things was that I had been molested, and again, I was the victim, but I felt shame. And so the shamans took me through a guided meditation where actually Archangel Michael came with his sword and cut the link of shame from my body to the shame body. And what I saw was that there was energy that flew out from me and went out into the atmosphere, and all these fairies or these little elemental beings came and kind of grabbed that energy and were very excited to get it. And later when I asked the shamans about what that was about, and they said, oh, they transform that negative energy, so they'll transform it into something else. So they're very glad that when you release that, and then that they'll take it and make it be something else.
That is the coolest thing.
We've seen a lot of movies on, shamanism and things, and it seems like what they're really good at, and me and Angela have seen several different movies, is removing like deep stuff, like you said, molestation, curses. I don't know. I just have saw things. People have had this heavy duty thing, and they go to these shamans. I don't know if I would be brave enough, but I wouldn't. I don't know that much about angels either. But what I do know is that ministers, angels minister to Jesus. There was a lot of talk in the Bible about angels, and I always wonder, why doesn't Christianity, why don't they talk more about angels? And we have guardian angels and this sort of thing. So I just think it's a beautiful thing that you've went into some of those places and that you've actually had a healing. And as a shaman, is it something you can find like in a phone book? I mean, is that how you find them, or how do you find a shaman?
You know what? In this case, it was something that I found in the phone book. But you could look it up online. You could Google it. Usually, in most big cities, there's really quite a large group of shamans, and the group that I found was not limited to Native American indigenous studies. These people have studied with Tibetan shamans, Native American shamans, South American shamans, and there's a whole entire association or group. And I just found it so helpful. And they explain things in such good ways like that the energy needs to be recycled. And one of the things too that came up that I didn't even think about was that this woman shaman, she said, the shame that you carry goes back 5 generations. It's not just your own shame. You have been carrying that along in reincarnating or just from ancestors this far back. So in that respect, I was healing the ancestors as well. And in the spiritualist church, I did learn about reincarnation and feel very strongly that is our situation. And so that was helpful too, to learn, just so much to learn.
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to say about angels, so many people in many Christian religions, I don't care, Mormon, whatever, we do struggle, I think, to really, really believe that there are angels that are on our side helping us. And, but you know what? It's funny. This one wonderful story that most people absolutely just go crazy over. And it was about a guy that was a missionary in another country where I think the story is that, well, I know that they were going to kill him. Then he knew that they planned to kill him after he'd been there doing the missionary work with them for a while. And then he realized, I've got to get out of here now. So he went to leave, and they all like backed off and just let him leave. Well, then many years later, he went back to visit them, and they said, "Who are those big, huge, like they were like big guys with armor and the whole thing, big ones?" And who were those? And he says, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And apparently, it was big, huge angels, big ones, and they were scared to death of them, and that's why they didn't try to stop him from leaving. Isn't that crazy? But many people know about that missionary story, and they're very real, but we struggle to believe that. I just want to say, but
well,
I
think
believe.
Yes, and part of the problem is that even though we don't visually see them so much. I mean, some people do have that gift and are able to see angels or see other spirits, but that's very rare. It's not the common thing. Usually it's a feeling. It's usually a feeling or a little tapping or, I don't know, there's things like, knowing the phone's going to ring. I mean, there's different things that just have you connected to that reality. Then to me, there's many more than just one reality. There's many, many realities. And so we get to choose which ones we want to involve with it on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's wonderful, Holly. All right, guys, Angela, Holly, we got to take a commercial break, but we'll be right back with Holly Nightingale. And our topic tonight is on awakening to and overcoming negative programming.
All right, you're listening to Heart Radio Show with Dan and Ann. Again, our guest this hour has been Holly Nightingale. If you'd like to contact Holly, you can send her your question to myprodigaljourney@gmail.com, and we'll see that she gets it. For more information about Heart Radio Show, visit Heart2Heart Radio Show or check our website out.
All right, we're back. We've been talking with our guest, Holly Nightingale. If you'd like to contact Holly, you can do so by mailing her at myprodigaljourney@gmail.com. And we'll see that she gets it. We're talking about awakening to and overcoming negative programming. And Holly, we just want to continue on with this journey that you've had. You've done so many things and you've experienced so many things experientially. And I love experientially because it just means you didn't just, have a initial belief system, collapse in on it and say, that's it. I was that way for 40 years. I was, a Jehovah's Witness, and I collapsed in, meaning I said, this is my truth. this is, this is what I believe. And I told everybody. And then eventually it started deteriorating and collapsing. And then I ventured out sort of like you did. But boy, you've been to so many different places than I've been. And I just wanted to know if you could tell us a little bit about Saint Germain. Um, that's an interesting subject for me, and I'll tell you why after you tell me a little bit about your experience with Saint Germain. And you said he's actually connected with you. Our last guest, um, Peter Mount Shasta, he's had an encounter with Saint Germain. So it's amazing that you've also had an encounter with Saint Germain.
Yes, that was a few years back, and it was really interesting. I was going to the spiritualist church, and I had a sense that I had done the mediumship, and I felt very strong about that. But I had a sense that an entity wanted to channel through me, and I was kind of afraid of that because I thought, well, do they take over your body? Where do you go? They say, oh, well, you just really just step aside, and they move into your space. And but I had a premonition within myself, kind of a knowing that something was going to happen with this. Anyway, so I was going to the spiritualist church. It was during a meditation, and it was a group meditation. So that created a lot more energy, and according to their systems, the more people you can gather together gives a stronger energy for spirit to come through. And I think that's true in most churches or most gatherings. But anyway, so I'm sitting in meditation, and I'm a very visual person, and I saw Saint Germain. Now, not the pictures that I have seen, but I knew it was Saint Germain standing in front of me, and he was all cloaked with a purple cloak on and everything. And he introduced who he was, and I recognized him, and he said, can I work through you? And I said yes. I was a little bit nervous about it. And what he did was he threw his cloak over me. So I was like completely enveloped in his cloak. And it just was the most wonderful, heartfelt feeling. It was a very good feeling. And I knew that it was right. That was okay. My previous fears were undaunted. They weren't needed. Anyway, I did go on to do some channeling for him, and I would go up to the pulpit and just kind of get as calm as can be and wait, and the words would come through. And so I did that for maybe a year or so, and then I found that other people also channeled Saint Germain. And I thought that was so interesting. It wasn't like he could only come through one channel, like some of the channeling that you hear about is just one person. But apparently, from what I understood in asking him and talking to him, that he comes through many different people and can be, like Jesus would say, I can be in all places at one time. So it was really interesting experience, and I still feel his presence today, and I feel that kind of the way I've justified it in my mind is that I'm of his class or his school or his teachings, and that has become my road or my pathway. I mean, I think we all have different pathways to our spiritual awakening or spiritual conditioning, whatever, to relieve, and that has become my pathway.
How did you go ahead, Dan?
Go ahead.
How did you first learn about Saint Germain? Was it well before that occurrence?
Yes, it was well before that, when I was studying different prophets, and I didn't have any particular interest in any different one. I mean, I learned about a lot of different ones, but I guess either he chose me or I chose me and didn't know it. But it's been a really good teaching experience.
Wow.
Wow. What's so interesting about all this? And I'll have to forewarn our listeners. But the very first time I talked to Holly, Actually, it was probably the second, but I remember talking to her on the phone. And somebody told me, she was a spiritual person and this and that. And I was like, okay. Well, all of a sudden, Holly called. And I just said to myself, I want to talk to you, Holly. And I went
Yeah.
into the bedroom and I said, and this is really weird, and I'm just telling everybody to, they might start seeing Saint
Yeah.
Germain everywhere. But I went in to the bedroom and I said, "Hi, Holly, how you doing?" And you said, "Great." And I said, I just finished a book, or I was writing the book, I forget which. But I said, I'm writing
Uh-huh.
the Divine Order of Alchemy, the ancient secret to union with God. And do you remember the first thing that you said?
No.
You
Tell
said,
me then.
I think you're channeling Saint Germain. And
Okay. Okay.
yes, so what was interesting about this, and Angela knows this to be true, is so it's been several years, but all of a sudden, Saint Germain started showing up everywhere. I was in Arizona, and a man said that he was a Mason, and the next thing you know, the conversation got on about Saint Germain, and then he turn this he he pulled out a poster, and I said, "What is that?" It was looked like an
Oh.
archangel, and he said, "Well, a
Oh.
lady had a vision of Saint Germain," and I said, "Wow," and he goes, "I have one other copy, and it's for you," and I said, "For me?" And so he gives me this picture, this rare, one of a kind picture of Saint Germain that looked like an archangel,
It
and so
does.
yeah, and I took it home and I framed it. And then the next thing you know, I'm driving down the road and all of a sudden the clouds turn purple. And I said, "Oh my God, I've never
Oh.
seen purple clouds. I mean, literally
Yeah.
purple,
Oh
real."
man, yeah. Very
And I
purple.
so I,
Wow.
I grabbed my camera while I was driving and I didn't think nothing about Saint Germain or nothing like that, but I snapped my camera and I took about 20 pictures. And I was sitting at home and I blew them up and there was Saint Germain right there in the cloud, as clear as a bell. And I says, "Look at this,
Oh.
Angela." And I showed everybody, and they go, "Oh my God, did you see that, or is that just?" I said, "No, I saw that."
And it was
And
in
then,
picture after picture after picture. He'd be maybe in a different spot on it, but it was always Saint Germain. It was
Wow,
very
that's
clear.
amazing.
but
That
it
is
didn't
Yeah.
stop
amazing. That's
there, guys.
wonderful.
It started showing up
Yeah.
in every book I read. Manly P. Hall, Saint Germain, the founding of our Constitution, Saint Germain, the making of our flag, the Saint Germain. And then then all of a sudden, I meet Peter Mount Shasta. He has an encounter with
Yeah.
Saint Germain. So that's why I was telling the listeners, beware. After talking to Holly, you
Yeah.
may see Saint Germain.
Well, guys,
Oh,
I mean,
that might.
honestly, go ahead. That
I was
might
just going
what?
to say
Go
that
ahead.
might be. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, as far as our listeners are concerned, we have plenty of people who are ex something, like ex JW or ex Mormon or ex Scout, I don't know, whatever, ex something. And they have so many fears around all of this stuff. And I want to be honest with you, because of something that I experienced for about 16 years where someone was channeling, and I thought he was channeling. Well, didn't believe in channeling, but I thought he was a man who was speaking. Jesus Christ was speaking through him to us to prepare us for Jesus coming back and all of this. And it was very real. And it was amazing what all happened in that whole experience for all those years where we all got healed of everything we ever had wrong with us. We didn't need to go to the doctor. And it was just a really crazy time. But then later on, I discovered that that was not really who I thought it was. It wasn't Jesus, and that he had been channeling something that was, I would say, was like not God. It was I think an evil spirit, because it brought us down to ruin, and my whole family destroyed over it. So I have so much fear. What would you say to somebody who feels that kind of way? What's your thought about that?
Well, I think yeah, and I can really hear what you're saying. I think you really have to just feel in your own heart, what does this feel right? I think we have a knowing. I think we have a sense inside of us. And, it's just like we have our own right and wrong. And even in what is it, the Zen culture that has the yin and yang thing?
Mm-hmm.
So even in the dark side, there's a little seed of light. There's a little seed of love. And in the love side, there's a little seed of darkness. So we have that in us to warn us, and we have to listen to our own intuition, our own heart, and and the results of what happened. In your case, it was, like you said, it was a really negative reaction. But sometimes, you could be at a party or in the store or whatever, and somebody, they just don't feel right. You don't want to be near them.
Yeah.
And then you have to respect that. That's your inner knowing.
Yes.
Well, Holly,
And so,
Holly, Angela, we're going to have to take a commercial break.
Okay.
And
okay.
so we'll be back with our guest, Holly Nightingale.
All right, you're listening to Heart to Heart Radio Show with Dan and Ann, and again, our guest this hour is Holly Nightingale. If you'd like to contact her, you can send an email to us at myprodigaljourney@gmail.com, and we'll make sure she gets it. For more information about Heart to Heart Radio Show, visit heart2heartradioshow.com or check out our personal website, prodigaljourneys.com. You're listening to Heart Radio Show on the X Zone broadcast.
All right, we're back. You're listening to Heart Radio with Dan and Ann, and our guest this hour is Holly Nightingale. If you'd like to contact Holly, you can email us at myprodigaljourney@gmail.com, and we'll forward that on to her. We've been discussing the process of awakening to and overcoming negative programming. And I just want to sort of finish up that last segment because I think Angela made a good point, and so did Holly, about listening to that inner self. Because, as we all know, there's dark spirits out there just as much as there's light spirits. And like Angela said, she got caught up in some of that darkness. And so I think that, like Holly said, there's a light and a darkness in us, and we've got to follow that light. And so that's a good thought.
It says in the Bible that you should, look for the fruits of the Spirit, right? So sometimes these things do take time to discover if it's of God or not, because you don't right away recognize the fruit. So you have to be patient, and sometimes, you wish it didn't take quite so long to figure it out, but sometimes it does. Just saying.
Yeah.
And I had an experience, excuse me, I'm sorry. I had an experience also where I had to, I went to a convention, and it was, I don't know if I should say that or not, but Elizabeth Clare Prophet group.
Yes.
And they had a lot of channeling and a lot of things going on there. And I was very interested, very curious. But there were certain little things that didn't make sense or that didn't quite fit. One of them was that she said that music was evil. The only music that was not evil was the waltz. And I was just like, well, that can't be. And so there were certain little cues that triggered in my mind, too, that went, this isn't right. This isn't right. So for me, that wasn't right. That whole church and group just did not resonate. And I don't know, I haven't followed them since then, and I don't know where it's gone. But for me, that wasn't, it wasn't true. And so I didn't continue that. But I do think that you have the sense inside yourself going, oh, well, no, whatever. That doesn't seem right.
Yeah, and that is what happened to me in the end. When I finally figured it out, it just finally hit me. And I don't know why it took me so long, but it did. So.
Well, don't feel bad. It took me 40 years to realize, I was a Jehovah's Witness 40 years before I started thinking, something doesn't seem right.
Yeah,
so I think we've all had that.
That's that comfort zone again, too, is that, like I said, all the moving around that I've done pushed me right out of that comfort zone, and that can cause changes. So,
oh, yeah. So
and one other thing, okay.
I was just going to say, where did you, you could finish what you were going to say, Holly. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, there's a lot of areas to ask for help. There's a lot of ways to ask for help. So whether you ask for God for help or angels or counselors or shamans or whoever it might be, it's really important to reach out, even if it's a good friend. Or I had one lady that told me her whole sob story. We're sitting on the bus bench waiting for the bus. And afterwards she said, oh, thank you so much. And, she just told me her whole sob story, and it was fine. I was interested. And but she reached out. So sometimes we just have to do that.
Mm,
Yeah,
that's right.
we
So
do.
my question I
Mhm.
was going to ask Holly was, did you ever feel the need to go back to the regular church, or did you stay in the spiritualist church? Where do you end up after all of this? Where do you find one place to land and you say this is the truth, or where did you end up?
Oh, that's a really good point. I know I haven't gone back to the Christian church. I think so much of it, um, it started maybe from a lot of really good wisdom, and it got eliminated. A lot of things got eliminated that shouldn't have been, and certainly I'm a woman, so I saw that the patriarchy was more in charge, and so no, I didn't go back to that, and I haven't gone back to the spiritualist church either. There became a conflict in the church years ago, and I just felt that they weren't being true to their nature of saying that we should be love and compassion and caring. So then my next step was the shamanism, and I guess that's the shamans that I go with. They get together once a month, and you can bring up any problems that you have. They discuss it. They do ceremonies. I think, and I want to put a hip hip hooray for rituals, whether it's lighting a candle for somebody, or doing sage or whatever it is. Rituals really do help. They've made a big significance in my life.
Wow. And
Wow.
your daughter's Buddhist, right? Isn't that right?
Yes, both my daughters are Buddhist, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the Buddhist religion has been really wonderful for me because it's about love and compassion,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and that we're all here together. And that was one of the things that really hit me at one point when I was depressed was the word all alone. And I felt all alone. And then I just kind of started looking at that and went, well, if I break this word apart, it's all one, not all
Oh, wow.
alone. It's all
Whoa.
one. And
Ah,
I went, no, that's even in that simple word, it's telling me I'm not alone. We're all together. We're here together. And
Mm,
that's a
amen.
big part of my belief system is that we're all here together and we need to help each other so that we can move on. And who knows what's next? I don't know.
how
Yeah.
did you get to how does somebody get to non-judgment? I mean, you non-judgment is sort of a neutral place. It's not like attacking or anything like that. I know you mentioned that you now are in a place of non-judgment. Could you tell us how
Mm.
person can get there, or what what they have to do? That's a nice place to be, it seems like.
I think it has to do with self-awareness too, because you have to notice how you react to somebody. And once you notice that, then you go, oh, um, do I want to respond to that? I had even a case today where a woman I hadn't seen in quite a long time made kind of a smart aleck remark to me, and I was taken aback, and I went, oh wow, what does she say that? What does that mean? And I just kind of went, you know, that doesn't really have anything to do with me. That's something to do with her. And
Yeah.
Hmm.
so I didn't have to judge myself. I don't have to judge her. That's something that she's doing. She was trying to get a rise out of me, and it didn't happen. And so it's I was in control of my own self,
Yay.
my own feelings
Emotions.
about it, my own
Yes.
emotions. I didn't have to respond, and I didn't have to judge her as negative either. I just had to notice that and say, "Oh my goodness, I don't even know what that's about. Something her thing is not about me," and then go
Yes.
on with my life.
It's like
And
the
it's
Eckhart
take
Tolle thing, isn't it? The whole pain body
yes,
thing. Yeah.
well, yes, and it wasn't isn't mine.
No.
And I think what is the fellow that talks about the four agreements? One of them is don't take anything personal,
Yeah.
and
Don
that's
Noel
really
Leaks.
true.
Mhm.
Wow.
Everybody's
So
doing their own.
Yeah, it sounds like you get to a point. I know I've gotten to this point where it's okay for people. Everybody's on their own journey. And I'm
Yes,
like you and like Angela, I'm sure. We don't care what religion you're in. If you're a Mormon and you are happy there, God bless you, and I mean it. If you're getting your spiritual support there, Jehovah's Witness, or whatever
yes,
religion it is, Christian. I mean, if you're feeling like you're connected there and you've got hope for the future and it's feeding your soul, I say God bless you. And I expect that those people will want to tell me about their journey as much as I want to tell them about my journey. But I don't think, like you said, Holly, Angela, we don't have to be offended anymore
No,
about
we
anybody. We don't
don't.
have to
no,
take anything personal.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to
no.
study a little bit more about this, check out Eckhart Tolle, Tolle, and there's a YouTube that talks about the pain body, and you can learn what Holly was talking about of how you don't have to react to your emotions. You can take charge of those emotions and say, "No, I don't think I'm going to react to this." And if you do, you do, and it's okay. You don't beat yourself up. But his teaching is that you can just dismiss that and just not let that emotion run wild, and it's amazing what happens when you do that. So
And it's
anyway,
just a lot of self-reflection too. Just notice how you react. Notice yourself, and go, oh wow, it's just maybe taking an extra moment. I don't know if there's what the initial point of that is, but change comes gradually. And I think I was talking earlier about how we take like 2 leaps forward and 1 back, and
yes,
we just keep moving along on awakening or becoming more aware of ourselves and caring more. I mean, the Buddhists talk about compassion is everything. I mean, the Beatles said love is all there is. And
yes,
I mean, that's
amen.
really, I mean, to me, that's the end point of where I'm at now, is that yes, everything else is not real. Love is the only thing that's really real. So I have to keep that in my mind, is that all the rest is just different perceptions that people have. And I don't want to condemn them for that. They're on their own path.
That's
I think
right.
So,
we
You
have to
know, you
go.
know,
I hate it.
we do. Wow, Holly,
oh,
that was wonderful. But and thank you. We're going to have to wrap
Thank
it
you,
up tonight.
Holly.
Holly, we
well,
enjoyed
thank
you.
you.
And thanks
Yeah,
for being
thank
with us
you.
tonight and sharing your wisdom and your journey. And if you'd like to contact Holly, you can email her at myprodigaljourney@gmail.com, and we'll forward that email on to her.
All right, we'll be back
And
next
I
week
thank
with
you,
another.
and
Thank you,
let's do
Holly.
this again. Okay,
Amen.
thank
Yes.
you.
All right,
All right.
we'll be back with another edition of Heart to Heart Radio next week. We're listening to www.xzbn.net, and we'll see you next week.